What's up, you guys? Let's walk the line on UFC 317. We're looking at another stacked pay-per-view event. The action's taking place in the fight capital of the world. Will be in the T-Mobile Arena as Ilia Topuria goes up in weight and looks to become one of the very rare fighters that's been a UFC champion in multiple weight classes.
Where the is my second belt?
All right, I'll show my cards right now. As a lot of you guys already know, Topuria's pretty much my favorite fighter in the game, so I'm very excited for this fight card. I have this card rated as the number 2 card of the year thus far as how stacked it is on paper. I have this right behind UFC 314, but I put this card above UFC 313. There's some depth to it, right? We have another title fight in the co-main event between Alexandre Pantoja and Kai Kara-France. But besides that, there's just so many exciting matchups, right? You're talking Terrance McKinney versus Slava Borshchev. That fight's going to be fireworks. The addition of Brandon Royval and Joshua Van has taken this card to a whole nother level. You have a top prospect in Jacobe Smith stepping down into the cage. He has real potential, but without a doubt, it's the headliner that takes this card to that next level, right? And I think that you have to respect what Topuria is looking to do. I understand where some of you guys are coming from when you say Topuria needed to put in more work down in the featherweight division to really cement his legacy down there, even though going out there and knocking out Volkanovski and Max Holloway will do some cementing. Okay, but I get it for those of you that are saying you wanted to see him defend more and whatnot, but I still think you have to respect the guts that he's showing, willing to come up and weight. He's somewhat undersized, but you know that's to be seen, because I think he's going to be absolutely jacked in this weight class. But as far as his length goes, he's going to be a little undersized, but he was coming up in weight to take on Islam Makhachev. Don't forget that, right? He's not shying from any type of challenges, and I think that that's great for the sport. All right, we'll talk about the co-main event here in a second. Speaking of a fighter or a champion that should potentially be going up in weight to bring on some new challenges. And if you take a look at the featherweight division, there's just not too much going on. I think that Topuria can do a lot more for his career up at 155 compared to what he could do down at 145. Diego Lopez took that L to Volkanovski. All right, Topuria is not looking to go out there and win rematches against fighters like Volkanovski and Holloway. That's not going to do anything for his legacy. He needs to face that new blood. Yeah, you could talk about Gene Silva, who looks to be an absolute menace, but he's still a fight or two away from fighting for the belt, in my opinion. He needs to go out there and get a victory over a higher level of opponent than just a Bryce Mitchell. Yeah, you have 2 undefeated contenders in Leroy Murphy and Movsar Evloev. I understand that. Now Movsar's taking on Aaron Pico, but those fighters just don't really move the needle. And I think that Topuria is looking to do big things. He's looking to get paid in a huge way. He's looking to really follow in the footsteps of Conor McGregor. And I think that jumping up in weight was the smart move here. And you can't really throw too much shade at Islam Makhachev for avoiding the fight, if you will, because he's also going up in weight, which is something you have to respect, right? I'd be a hypocrite if I just said he's hiding from Topuria, because he's looking to do big things too. He's looking to become a double weight champion and all that. So, and in the co-main event, a fighter that seems to be shying away from that type of move, although time will tell, is Pantoja, an elite fighter, a fighter that I really enjoy watching, but he has no business taking on Kai Kara-France here. It's a shame that he's not facing off against Beneil Kopp, who is the real #1 contender. But maybe the UFC did the right thing by not booking that fight, because now Kopp gets injured. He has a foot injury, so he wouldn't have been able to make the walk anyway. Besides that, though, I would like to see Pantoja go up to the bantamweight division. Imagine a fight between him and Merab Dvalishvili. Okay, that would be a hell of a matchup. And I don't know who's going to stop Merab right now. I certainly don't think it's going to be Corey Sandhagen. So that fight still can come to fruition if Pantoja goes out here and does what he should do. If he wants to make that move, if he goes up to the rooftops and shouts he wants to make the move up to the bantamweight division, I certainly believe that the UFC will allow him to do that. We've seen it before. When fighters say they don't want to stick around in a weight class, he could just say he can't really make the weight cut anymore or whatever. I think he has the ability to go up in weight, and I think that there's bigger challenges for him there. The flyweight division is very stacked. It has good depth, but towards the top, he's already defeated a lot of the cream of the crop. He needs to make that move. If he really wants to take his legacy to another level, that's the type of move that you got to do, man. You got to jump around weight classes, and you got to become a champion in multiple divisions if you want to be the elite of the elite. Now, I could really say a lot more in this intro, because there's a lot I could talk about, especially when we're talking about Topuria, but I'll save that for the main event. If you guys are new here, what we're going to do is we're going to start at the bottom of the card, work our way up towards the top. We're going to dissect and break down every fight. We're going to dissect the betting odds for them as well. If you guys want my official targets that I'm targeting for this card, you guys know you can email me or shoot me a DM on Instagram. I'll give you further information there. Or you could also sign up through my referral link to Bovada, and I will give you my entire slate. Make sure you're following me on IG because the content is starting to really step up. I'm working on some funny stuff. I got the skits coming and all that. So make sure you're following me over there as well. And with no further ado, let's go jump into some action.
The teller.
So let's get this one out the way as we have the biggest favorite on the card. And in fact, he's a massive favorite in Jacobe Smith, the former Division I Oklahoma State wrestler who has came over to the MMA world and has made quick noise. He's now 10-0, of course, coming off finishes on Dana White's Contender Series and then coming off a massive knockout victory against Preston Parsons. And anytime you have a fighter that has a very decorated wrestling background and then they start to mix in signs of high-level striking or quick progression with their striking, you're going to get a lot of buzz behind them. All right, that was exactly what happened with Bo Nickel. If you guys remember. And eventually, the hype train was derailed. Now, we'll see if that's the case with Jacobe Smith here over the next year or two as he starts to fight higher level fighters. I just don't think that Niko Price is that guy. I don't, at least not right now. Okay, he's shown to be dangerous in unorthodox positions throughout his career, but now he's creeping up on 36. He's won 1 of his last 4 fights. It took a 41-year-old Robbie Lawler just 39 seconds to get the knockout on Price. In the fight prior against Phil Rowe, he was finished up in the 3rd round, and that was a fight that he slowed down in. Okay, I was cage side for that fight, so I had a great vantage point for it, and he was breathing heavily going into that 3rd round. He's been KO'd by fighters like Vicente Luque, Jeff Neal, Abdul Razak Al Hassan, and I understand that a lot of those fighters, especially back then, they were dangerous strikers, but still, there's definitely a track record here of Price taking damage and being finished. And I think that Jacobe Smith carries some serious power. He still needs to polish up his overall game, and there has to be a lot of learning experiences going on for him to take his game to that next level. But I just don't see Price getting in his way here. And I actually think that Jacobe Smith is going to get him out of there. I think that the first round knockout's very live as they trade. It's very live. And I could also see Price slowing down and Smith maybe even finishing him up via like ground and pound in the 2nd or 3rd rounds. I have a feeling that Smith's cardio will hold up very well, and the power is there. He could always resort back to the wrestling. That left hook that he landed on Parsons was tight. It was crisp, and that's a good sign, right? He's not relying on his athleticism to go out there and land KOs like we saw from Mansour Abdul Malik. I wasn't crazy about his last performance. You guys know I've had high praise for him, and he put some money in my pocket there, but that's a fighter that needs to refine his striking a little bit more technically. This kind of reminds me here of the Malcolm Wellmaker versus Chris Montino fight, right? Where you're going to have a fighter go in there with big hype and with a huge betting line next to their name, and he's going to show that he's the superior fighter. Of course, he has a lot more to prove. The record is not extremely impressive, but when you take a look at his last 2 victories, they're against somewhat respectable opponents. Christian Savoy, the fighter he defeated on Dana White's Contender Series, is respected up in the Canadian fight scene. So, I mean, he's starting to take the step up the ladder, and Niko Price is not going to knock him off it. Jacobe Smith opened up as a minus 1,800. Okay, he's now a minus 1,600. He's a massive favorite. What are you going to do with that line? I mean, really what you're going to want to look at, in my opinion, is an under in this fight. See if you can get some decent value on an under 1.5 or a Jacobe Smith in the first round, a Jacobe Smith to win the fight via knockout/TKO. But even then, those lines are going to be high. This is probably going to be one of those fights that you're going to just have to sit on ice and just try to enjoy it from a fan's perspective, and kind of get to witness a top blue chip prospect in the fight game work his way up through the ranks, because you're not going to get a ton of value here. So I don't really know what you want me to tell you. I would advise none of you guys to be targeting Niko Price. I'll tell you that. I don't see any value there that's really worth targeting based off the fact that I think he's going to fall short. In the heavyweight division, we have the short notice UFC debut of Alan Guzzi Hines. He'll be stepping in for Justin Tafa to take on Jhonata Diniz. And this is an extremely different type of matchup for Diniz, and that potentially could be a problem. All right, we know Justin Tafa wants nothing more than to plant his feet in the middle of the octagon and have a striking match with you. Okay, he's a kickboxer. You're not going to see Tafa shooting in on you. And that is, in a way, a benefit to Diniz if he would have been in there with him, because that's exactly what Diniz wants to do. And if we've seen a hole in Diniz's game, it is without a doubt his takedown defense and his grappling. Okay, well, Alvin Hines is a fighter. You pull up his regional tape, which he's had multiple fights over in the LFA. He's a fighter that looks to close the distance, work his clinch game, and he'll definitely shoot. He'll get in on your hips and he'll try to trip you up over your feet and get on top of you. Okay, so that is a potential threat that he brings into this matchup. Now, if Diniz can keep this fight standing, without a doubt, I give him the clear advantage with his striking. We know about all the kickboxing experience that he has. He's been in there with fighters like Rico Verhoeven, all types of high-level kickboxers, and we've seen it translate into his MMA game when he's able to keep the fight standing. He went out there and had the comeback KO in the second round over Austin Lane. Don't forget, though, he was taken down in that first round. He was controlled quite a bit. The Carl Williams fight was a strange one. That was a fight where Williams really didn't shoot early on for whatever reason, and he kind of mentally blew that fight. He ended up having success in the third round when he finally looked to close the distance on Diniz, though. All right, we saw more issues with Diniz and his grappling. And then Marcin Tybura went out there and just absolutely ran through him in the second round. That was a great cash for us on that night there. Tybura is a much more proven and a high level, more of a high level fighter than a Hines. But I'm just going to highlight right now, once again, that there is real potential that Hines can trip Diniz up over his shoelaces and get on top of him. Okay. Hines shows toughness. He'll look to trade with you on the feet a little bit. It's the heavyweight division. He has some power, but he will be outmatched there. And defensively, he has a lot of flaws with his stand-up, and I can see Diniz knocking Hines out. Okay, I can. Of course, he's never been finished because he hasn't lost yet. He's 7-0, but I've seen him get wobbled a bit on the regional scene, and Diniz is a real knockout artist. 7 KOs in 8 fights. And at the end of the day, I am going to take Diniz to win this fight. I'm going to say he has enough success with his stand-up. I think that there's just more of a wider gap in the striking compared to the grappling. All right. Even though Hines has had some success getting on top of opponents, it's been against lower level fighters, and we'll see if he could translate some of that success he's had there against a fighter in Diniz. But I'm going to bank on Diniz at the very least being able to get up to his feet at times and just score more damage, even if he's taken down in a round, maybe score some more damage early on and solidify a round. But the knockout is going to be live. I definitely do believe that this is a closer fight than the line is stating, as Diniz is now a minus 200. But check this out. If you guys can see, he opened up as a minus 85 on certain books, and that line has plummeted, and it's specifically for the reason that we're talking about. How can you trust a fighter at minus 850, minus 600, minus 500, 400? How can you really even trust him at minus 200 when you're talking about a fighter that has defensive flaws, right? As far as him stuffing takedowns, defensive grappling flaws in his game. And in this division, when fighters are taken down, these big boys have a tough time getting back up to their feet. Okay. And Guzzi looks to have a little bit of a gas tank. He's a fun guy. If you guys want to check out some interviews with him, I mean, he's a kind of a polarizing figure to an extent. He's fun to listen to, and I would love to see him have success, but I can't pick him straight up in this matchup. I think that he probably loses, but I think that he's even more alive than a plus 170 dog. And I wouldn't be surprised if that line continues to dip. I have him capped more around being like a plus 140. I think that that's where the line should be because there's just a major question mark to the fact, is Diniz going to be able to keep this fight standing or land that KO early enough where he doesn't have to be threatened with the takedowns for 15 minutes, where you could very well see him laying on his back, and you could be a frustrated bettor if you're backing him. Or you could be jumping out of your seat in the first round when he lands a big, powerful knockout strike. It's the fight game, boys. 2 young, dangerous fighters square off here in Payton Talbott and Felipe Lima. Both these fighters have quickly jumped up on us over the past year or two. Lima, who had just won the Octagon Championship before getting a short notice debut opportunity against Muhammad Naimov, which he delivered on in a massive way. And you see him here bringing the belt back to his gym. All-Stars, which you have fighters like Khamzat Chimaev. Of course, Alexander Gustafsson was over there leading the reins for years. And he gets him work with a lot of high-level fighters. Yes, he's Brazilian, but yep, training over in Sweden. And I had the pleasure of watching him fight live against Miles Johns in that last belt taking place over in Tampa. And we did cash in on some money over there. I think that Lima is the real deal. Now, you have to take into consideration that he had been fighting his career in the bantamweight division. He came over and jumped up to the featherweight division when he hit Naimov with that rear naked choke. And then even that last fight against Miles Johns was actually up at 145 as well. Here he's coming back down to his natural weight class in the bantamweight division, where he has the potential to be a real threat. And we'll see how far he could run it. Talbott was once, in fact, just recently looked at to be a major threat in this division for the years to come. But now everybody has turned their back on him after the Raoni Barcelos performance, which he was a massive favorite. And he went out there and he cost people money. He was absolutely dominated. Essentially, he was 10-8'd in the first round. One judge scored at 10-8, and he was dominated throughout the fight, though. He was controlled for almost 10 minutes. He was taken down 8 times on 15 attempts. You do need to understand that Barcelos does have high-level wrestling. He's a Brazilian wrestling champ, so he did bring that to the table. But I would not argue with you guys at all when you guys are stating that Talbott got exposed with his grappling. And in fact, if you guys remember, when I was breaking down Talbott's fight going into the Dana White's Contender Series bout against Reyes Cortez, I actually picked Cortez, if I remember correctly. I was incorrect there. And largely the reason why I picked against Talbott was I enjoyed watching his tape when he was landing the danger striking, but you saw it even early on. He was taken down in a lot of his fights. In the beginning of those fights, even once he came back and got a W, he was taken back. He was put on his back. He had to continuously try to work to get back to his feet and then land that damage and find the KO or whatever. And I saw that hole in this game back then, and now it's starting to come back out. All right. And also, you take a look at the level of competition, like a Nick Aguirre, not trying to throw too much shade at him, but not really a UFC caliber fighter, in my opinion. Cameron Simon, who we all look at as a technical striker and whatnot. He's quickly showing that he has defensive flaws. He's getting knocked out one time after another. Yanis Gimori, he went out there and knocked him out in 19 seconds. So you're going to get a lot of hype after a performance like that. But I don't know, man. Gimori, I don't know how much stock I put into that victory. And as we see Talbott continuously fight higher level fighters now, I think you will see some struggles. He's going to have to make some adjustments. He's going to have to grow and develop. He will have the potential to do it. He's just 26 years old. He brings in a great frame for this division. And you also you don't want to completely overlook the danger that he brings with his striking. He will be live to knock out Lima here. He will be live to knock out a lot of fighters that he's facing off against the next couple of years. But when he's in there with fighters that could change levels and that are just a little bit more proven and complete, he's going to be in trouble. He's going to be in trouble. So we'll see how his career takes place over the next couple of years. But right now, I don't think that he is well-rounded enough to take out Felipe Lima. Okay, he may land a KO. It's possible. But Felipe Lima is the more polished prospect right now. He's more well-rounded. Okay, we saw what he did to Naimov. You cannot overlook that performance. That was really impressive. Coming in on short notice and showing that you have a gas tank like that as well. Okay, so that's an issue too, because he has a gas tank, so he can continuously look to shoot and chain wrestle and change levels. He's not going to gas out, even if a takedown or two gets stuffed. He can continuously look to impose that threat. And I think that he could find a sub in this fight. I think that he could find a sub similarly to what he did to Naimov. Okay, now that's kind of a bold statement because we haven't seen Talbott finish thus far, just that one lone decision loss. Okay, but as this fight takes place for a considerable time down on the mat, and maybe you see Talbott get desperate to jump back up to his feet, I think that the back take could be live and a rear naked choke could be sunk in. All right, so and on the feet, don't get it twisted. Lima can hold his own. Okay, he's a polished striker as well, but I don't want him getting caught up in a straight striking match. Okay, if I'm backing him and I'm in his corner, he should not be caught up in a straight striking match because he will be facing danger. All in all, I got Felipe Lima winning this fight. I'm going to give you that method of victory here in a second, but just quickly take a look at the odds with me. Lima opened up as a -150. We're seeing action coming his way. He's currently a -175. I don't think that line's out of reach even now. I have Lima capped more as like a -200. So I wouldn't even be surprised if we still see action coming in at him. I just think that the takedown defense and grappling of Talbott was exposed, and Lima is good there. Okay, he's good there. And he can go out there and he could do that. So now the tough decision I have to make is, does Lima win this fight via submission, or does he go out there and does he get the decision victory? I'm going to say he wins a decision. All right, I guess I'm chickening out there, but the sub is live, guys. So I'm doing a little a cheat move there. I'm still going to hang on to the fact that I kind of hinted at that some, but I'm going to say he gets the decision victory. Changing levels, mixing things up, and having some success landing some strikes too. Now, this is an underrated fight, right? This is one of those fights that I was referring to when I talked about the depth of this card, right? Even a fight like this, fighters that just recently worked their way into the UFC and don't really have a solidified name, a big name, but for us hardcore fans, we understand what they're bringing to the table. First off, Jose Delgado is an electrifying striker. He's going out there, he's starching dudes. You have to love what you're seeing from him there. Hyder, Amil is a fighter that is consistently being overlooked, but he shows real toughness. Okay, he came through Dana White's Contender Series at an older age, but he keeps going out there and delivering. He's coming in as an underdog time and again, and he's going out there and he's getting the job done. All right, the Zhang Yang Lee fight was crazy. If you remember that one, that was the one where he had him up against the cage and just hit him with like a 30 punch barrage, where he eventually got the stoppage. He had the tough decision victory over Emra Sanmez on DWCS, and since then, 2 finishes and 1 decision in the UFC. And most notably was the fight that he just had against William Gomis, which is a high-level fighter. I think that William Gomis is a high-level fighter, so that was a big W there. Okay, whether or not you thought that he won, it went to a split decision. You take a look at the numbers. He actually outstruck him on total strikes. He outstruck Gomis 164 to 116. Okay, and he controlled him for 2 minutes and 43 seconds. He hit 1 takedown in 6 attempts, while Gomis was 0-3 there. Of course, you can never base a fight strictly off the stats, but it is important to kind of highlight those numbers. I thought that he did win the fight. I had him winning 2-1. I know some of you guys will disagree with me there. I remember getting messages from a lot of people after the fight. They were very frustrated because Gomis cost them some money there. It was a close fight, but Gomis is he's a very elusive fighter with solid striking, good takedown defense, and Hyder Amil was able to just kind of do enough to get the job done there. And at the very least, you have to understand that he was at least very competitive in it, regardless if you had him losing. And that's important because Jose Delgado is similar. He's going to want to keep this fight standing and fight at range and use that very fluid striking that he possesses. He switches stances. He's dynamic. He'll blast you with kicks. He'll light you up with his hands. We saw him just go out there and starch Connor Matthews using his boxing skills, besides just the kicking threat that he has, which is also something that's very dangerous. And yeah, Connor Matthews is a lower level fighter. Don't get him confused with who's the fighter, man. He reminds me so much of Francis Marshall, which they actually faced off on DWCS. But Francis Marshall is a much more polished and dangerous version than a Connor Matthews. So you do understand that Matthews is low level. He knocked out Ernie Juarez on DWCS, but it's the way that he's doing it that's impressive. You could see it translating into success against higher level fighters. But the thing that we have to highlight is his lone loss, which was against Chris Makate. You could pull that full fight up on YouTube, and it was the grappling. It was the wrestling and grappling that cost him. That fight took place about 2.5 years ago. And I'm going to say that a young fighter, first off, 2.5 years to a fighter around this age range, that's a massive amount of time for him to grow as a fighter. And I'm going to say that Delgado is going to have the takedown defense and the elusiveness to avoid being smothered by Hyder Amil, who does have, comes in with a high school wrestling background. He does bring in that threat to change levels, and he also has striking too. But the difference here, in my opinion, will be the length and the striking advantage of Jose Delgado as he keeps this fight standing. So I will side with Delgado, but I picked Amil to win fights as an underdog before. I'm turning my back on him a little bit here as he's an underdog once again, but he is live. Make no mistake that he is live to win this fight. And Amil is a plus 125. You see action coming in on Delgado, who's now a minus 145. He opened up as a minus 122. You got to be a little bit careful if Delgado's line gets too high. I don't really mind it around a minus 145, but I don't really see too much value there. It's pretty accurate. I probably have him capped at like a minus 140, 135. Just the fact that there is the danger of him being taken down as Amil changes levels, and also the fact that Amil is going to march forward and bring the fight, okay, from the moment the bell rings, right? He trains over there with Gilbert Melendez. He trains out of their gym, and it's kind of ironic because he's reminding me of Gilbert Melendez right off the rip, even before I really focused in on the fact that he trains with him. He's a very similar fighter, if you remember how Gil was. Those dudes are scrappy, they're game. They're not really the most technically refined, but they're just the real fighters. But they also do have technical abilities, and they're well-rounded. They have jiu-jitsu, wrestling, they could box, they could do a little bit of it all. But still, give me Delgado to win this fight. He's going to be live to land a KO because that's what he's about. He has 5 knockouts out of his 9 victories. He also has some subs. I'm going to say that he potentially gets that knockout. That knockout is very live. Man, Hyder has looked really tough and durable, though. I'm going to say, I'm going to cheat you guys once again. Watch this. I'm going to say that KO is very live, but I think that the decision may be a little bit more likely. But if he gets that KO, I called that as well. Another absolute treat as we cruise right towards the middle of this fight card. Terrance McKinney, T-Rex, is taking on Slava Borshchev, a.k.a. Slavaklas. I mean, what's going to happen after the cage door closes and these two fighters go at each other? All right, there's a very, very big likelihood that this fight's going to end in the first round because you take a look at the history, every single one of T-Rex's fights have ended in the first round, whether he wins or loses. You have a fighter in Slavaklas who has a ton of knockout victories. He's been taking some damage as well, but you have to note that he typically pushes through it, right? He's shown to be very durable. Even in fights where he's been dominated, he's never been knocked out. You just got that one, that lone sub where he was subbed against a very high-level grappler in Chase Hooper, which you also do need to note that he was dropped via strikes in that fight, first and foremost. That's what actually set that up, right? So you have all these moving parts that are pointing towards this fight being absolutely electrifying. Now let's talk about how these fighters match up and where we see some potential advantages coming from either side. The first thing that stands out to me is the wrestling advantage that McKinney brings to the table. Okay, when he chooses to use his wrestling, it is dangerous. Okay, he could rip you down to the mat. He's not the type of fighter that's going to look to use it to just grind rounds out. Okay, if he gets you down to the mat, he's going to look to open up with ground and pound, or he's going to look to get on your back and sink in some kind of choke. All right, so it's important to note that he has that advantage because we've seen Slavaklas struggle there at times, specifically against Mark Diakese, which back in the day, that was kind of alarming because Diakese was known as more of a kickboxer, even though with time he started to show that really was an aspect of his game that he sharpened up. He went out there and took advantage of other fighters in that sense, but it still was alarming. We saw fighters like Mike Davis have success there. Chase Hooper obviously had enough success down in the mat to pull off that sub. He did land that strike on him first and he hurt him, but dominated him down in the mat. Now, I did like some of the growth that Slava showed in that last fight against Tom Nolan, but Tom Nolan's really not a proven grappler, but Tom was only 1 of 8 on his takedown attempts. Slava was starting to stuff a lot of them, and it's important to note, we know that Slavaklas has been training under Uriah Faber and training over their Team Alpha Male for some years, trying to catch up that grappling aspect of his game to his kickboxing. But this is a fighter that came into the MMA game late in his career, right? He had the kickboxing background. Okay, so the striking's there, but his grappling, it's hard for him to catch it up to the level of some of these fighters like a McKinney that was wrestling collegiately, and McKinney, a fighter that's been in the MMA world from a very young age. You know, you pull up pictures with him and Michael Chiesa when McKinney was just a kid. Okay, so he's been doing this for a longer time. On the other hand, where Slavaklas potentially has I don't know if I want to say massive, but a big advantage is his durability. And we could actually say it's a massive advantage, right? He's never been knocked out. Even with all the damage that he's taken as of recently, he always pushes through all of that. Okay, he's very hard to finish, and he's unfinishable via strikes, at least thus far. Okay, on the other hand, McKinney, he's been knocked out 5 times. Out of his 7 losses, okay, he's been knocked out via KO/TKO 7 times. Of course, kicking off with the Sean Woodson fight, at least on the big stage, right? On Dana White's Contender Series, he got hit with the flying knee. He was a massive favorite in that fight and got exposed, followed up with the Derek Minner sub loss. Okay, but when we're talking KO losses that are all happening in the first round, Drew Dober gets him in the first round. Bonfim gets him out in the second round. There's a couple second round finishes there too. Nazim Sadyakov gets the submission there against him in the second round after McKinney had a successful first round. Okay, he flaked out in the second round. He got knocked out by Esteban Ribovics in a devastating fashion. Of course, if you guys remember, that was crazy the way he hit him with the head kick there. And you have to believe if we're going to see a knockout in this fight, I would say it's more likely going to come by Slavaklas landing on McKinney. Now, that's not to say that with the firepower McKinney possesses, that he can't knock out Slava, but we haven't seen Slava knocked out yet. And I put a little bit more faith into him pushing through adversity. But where I see Slava running into trouble in this fight okay, which I'm going to get to it right now, is that when I see McKinney getting this fight down to the mat and raining down ground and pound, I could see him opening up a rear naked choke, some type of sub finish, which McKinney actually has half of his victories via sub. Okay, he's underrated there, and Slava's not on that level. I'm going to say McKinney gets this fight down to the mat and opens up a submission, okay? But if we see a knockout, I'm going to favor going Slava's way. I am, okay? There's so many moving parts. I hope I'm not losing you guys here, because Slava has also shown defensive flaws on the feet. We talked about that Chase Hooper fight where he dropped him, so that's a problem too. But even then, I would see McKinney hurting him and eventually getting on his back and opening up and setting up the sub. Okay, if you guys are sticking with me here. So that's how I see the fight playing out. This one is a tricky one. It really is. McKinney brings in a little bit of a reach advantage. He's a true athlete. If this fight goes to the later rounds, he could be in real trouble. Slava pushes through adversity, and McKinney just simply doesn't. This is such a tricky fight. But at the end of the day, I do have to side with McKinney. I'm not crazy about his betting line, as he opened up around a -200, a 2-1 favorite. Definitely not in agreement there. He's now a -185. I'm still not in agreement. I just don't think that you could trust him at a line like that, just based on the fact that he flakes out in his fights. If he doesn't have that early success, he flakes out, and he's defensively vulnerable and all that. So I have McKinney being more like a -150, -160. I see the value on the dog here. We got ranked women's flyweight action set to take place here, with the number 8th ranked Viviane Araujo taking on the number 10th ranked Tracy Cortez. This is a hangover fight for Cortez, as she comes in off the tough loss against Rose Namajunas, which was a headliner match. If she would have won that, there would have been some huge things coming up on the horizon for Cortez. So she has to get the train back on the track here. And this is an interesting matchup for her, because us hardcore fans, we understand that Araujo is a fighter that is underrated, right? When you really take a look at her, and although she's 38 years old, this is a chick that really takes good care of her body. Okay, so I don't really expect Araujo to be an ancient-looking fighter in there. Okay, so and you also understand that Araujo has a little bit of a reach advantage. She's a good striker, and she has shown to have good takedown defense. All right, when you mix that all together, it could be a little bit of an issue for Cortez. If Cortez isn't able to go to her wrestling consistently and have success there, and this ends up being a striking affair, how is this fight going to look for Cortez? Because I could see this fight playing out closely. Now, I do like the boxing skills that Cortez possesses. I'm not completely turning my back on her because she was outstruck against Rose Namajunas. We just recently saw once again how high level Rose is. I think without a doubt, Rose is one of the highest level female fighters on planet Earth right now. Okay, so I don't turn my back on Cortez, where she was outstruck 119 to 85. You do want to bring up the fact that Cortez was able to get a couple takedowns in that fight, even though she was taken down 5 times and she was actually dominated in the grappling. But she did hit 2 takedowns in 5 attempts. It's not easy to get in on Rose and get her down to the mat. I know Rose was bouncing back up, but there is potential that Cortez can go the wrestling route here to sneak off a round or two and some closely contested rounds, because that's how I see this fight playing out. I think that the striking exchanges will play out closely, but where I can see Cortez kind of snagging those rounds up is changing level, hitting a quick little takedown, maybe riding the back up to the cage and just raining down some strikes where it looks like she's just kind of in control of the round there, right? By just being the aggressor with that threat of the grappling as she's marching forward. Okay, and it's important to note Araujo comes into this fight off a big victory. She went out there, she defeated Karine Silva. Silva is a fighter that's been having a lot of success. She outstruck her 105 to 76. All right, she was looking good in that fight. Circling back to the point that I'm making, that she's 38, but she really doesn't look like a 38-year-old fighter, in my opinion. So don't completely overlook her there. But yes, you could definitely say Cortez has the age advantage, as she's 31. She was just in that 5-round battle with Rose. So you expect Tracy to come into this fight even more mature, more developed, and a more polished version of herself. I'm going to lean towards Tracy Cortez's way, but I think I made this clear that I'm not thinking that she's going to go out there and run through Araujo. I think that this is going to be a fight that plays out closely, and Araujo is going to have an opportunity to sneak in a split decision or something like that. But I still will side with Cortez, just based on the fact that she's the more well-rounded fighter. She has more things going her way, and seems the judges like her too, because actually one of the judges scored that fight against Rose. They gave her 2 rounds, which I did not. I don't even know if I had her winning really 1 round. Maybe you could have gave her that 1 round, but I don't know how Eric Cologne scored that 48-47. I mean, you take a look at the numbers in that fight. Rose was in complete control. And, but we go over to the betting odds here. Cortez is a -230. You guys already know that I'm going to say there's not a lot of value on that line. I don't like it at all. I think that this is clearly a spot where the value is on the underdog, Araujo, at +190. And she has consistently came through as a dog, at least a couple times. She's came through as a dog. I put money in my pocket. I could think about her bout with, who was it there? The blonde. I'm just gonna bring it up real quick. I mean, she's came in multiple spots as a dog and she's pulled through. When you're thinking of Andrea Lee, all right, that was a spot she came in as a dog and multiple times. I mean, she has done it. So don't be surprised if she does it once again. How's it going, guys? I hope you're all doing well out there. Wanted to take a second to thank you for tuning in. For all you guys that are new to the channel, please smash that subscribe button. If you guys could all hit the like button. And don't forget, guys, go catch me on my social media. It's popping up below. And you guys, if you're looking to work with me for my official plays, reach out to me. I'll give you further information. This is going to be a huge card. We've been on absolute fire as of recently. Things are picking up big time. Come join me. Come target the plays that I'm targeting because we're going to cash. Shoot me an email, DM me on Instagram. And of course, you guys can also sign up through my referral link to Bovada, and I will give you my entire slate for free. As soon as I saw this fight announced, it fully caught my attention, right? This is the type of matchup where it's like if somebody were to say, right now, you're a matchmaker, make the most exciting fight that you can make, okay? And you very well may say Brandon Royval and Joshua Van, based on the activity and the energy that they bring into the cage. I mean, this is going to be nonstop action. Of course, I mean, you take a look at the numbers. Van is landing 8.2 strikes per minute. There's crazy volume going on. Royval, you got him at 4.46. But I mean, when you watch him on tape, I mean, I think he's a much more aggressive fighter than those numbers even state. At times, you've seen opposition try to stifle him with grappling, like in the Tatsuro Taira fight. But this should be a match where they're really able to both open up and exchange. If we see one fighter looking to impose a grappling tactic, it's going to be Royval, right? It should be Royval, who seems to be more well-rounded, right? He's more experienced and he has had more success in that department. And where you could say we've seen Van struggle at times very slightly is where he's been taken down early on in his career. But he has shown so much progress with his takedown defense and specifically his get-up game, right? And we saw it on display once again in that last bout against Bruno Silva, which was a very frustrating fight for me. I'll tell you why in a second. And of course, that fight just took place at UFC 316. So you have to expect that Van is going to be shooting out of the gates. He's going to be very comfortable once the fight picks up. Now, the reason why that fight was frustrating for me is I had a target on that fight to go the distance, which the line was basically the same to take Van to win the fight via decision as the distance. So, I mean, that's why I went with that play there. And of course, the fight finishes up with just 59 seconds left to go. Yeah, that was a frustrating one. But Van looked really good. He put an onslaught on Silva there as he landed 149 strikes on him, man, eventually breaking him down and leaving the ref with no choice but to stop the fight. Now, the key to this fight, in my opinion, is how much success Royval has changing levels and mixing in the grappling, okay? Because if we see Van just stuffing takedowns or doing what he's been doing as of recently, where if his butt just touches the mat for a second, he jumps right back up to his feet and then he creates space and then he pushes the pace on you with his striking, where he's pretty much going to outvolume everybody, including Royval. All right, he's going to outvolume him as well. That could be an issue for Royval. Now, you can't completely overlook the fight that Van had as of recently, where he ran to a big strike by Charles Johnson, and he was finished in the third round in a fight that I've said in the past he was comfortably up. But that fight was actually a little bit closer in retrospect, even though I still had Van winning that fight if he wasn't finished. But yes, it was actually playing out a little bit closer than maybe I've stated in the past. But is Royval going to land a fight-ending strike on Van? It's not out of the realm. We've seen him go in there and hurt the opposition before. One that comes to mind right off the rip, of course, is the Matheus Nicolau fight, which was back in 2023. He pulled off the finish there. We've seen him sneak in a lot of submissions, right? He submitted Matt Schnell with that guillotine choke. We know he's crafty down there. He submitted Kai Kara-France with the guillotine choke. He submitted Tim Elliott with the arm triangle choke. I mean, there's a variety of subs going on here, and he's dangerous down there. I'm going to say that Van shows that continued growth with his grappling, and I'm going to say that he doesn't get exposed too much down there and does enough to bounce back up to his feet like he has. And the reason why I'm going to side with Van here, even though he's the younger fighter, the lesser experienced fighter, the reason why I'm going to side with him is that I think that this fight plays out to be a war. Not concerned about the 4-inch reach disadvantage that he has. I think he closes the distance and just lets those things go. I think he outvolumes Royval, and I say he takes a split decision victory. I think that Royval is gonna play into the entertaining type of matchup. He's gonna look to put on a show, and that's gonna enable them just to go to war. And I'm gonna say that Van just slightly outstrikes him and has his moments where he wins a split decision. That's where I'm gonna go with this. And in any type of fight that Van's gonna be in, where it's that type of fight, it's just at 23 years old too. I want to highlight that he's gonna take major strides, especially with the activity that he's been having inside the octagon. But when he's in a striking type of fare, he is polished, man. His kickboxing is very polished. And this is a fight. I love the fact that it's on a big pay-per-view event like this, but this is a fight that should really have headlined just a regular weekend Apex event. Imagine this being a 5-rounder. This fight should be a 5-rounder in my opinion, but I'm still happy to see it here, and I'm happy to break this fight down. And I'm not going to turn my back on Joshua Van, a fighter who I've been very impressed with. He's the underdog here. Right now, he's at plus 100. He's a very slight underdog. We've seen him coming into his recent fights as a massive favorite. That last match was crazy. The line kind of had me scratching my head against Bruno Silva, but he went out there, he delivered. He closed as like an 8-1, 9-1 favorite. It was ridiculous, but he went out there and he delivered. And I'm not going to turn my back on him here. I think that he takes a close one, and we see a step up in his game. In the middleweight division, we have a matchup between Jack Hermansson and Gregory Rodrigues. The first thing that stands out to me in this matchup, of course, is it's a 3-round fight. Okay, if this was a 5-round main event match, I would look at this bout differently. All right, and that's based off the fact that Hermansson's a fighter that really gets going as the fight picks up, as we saw in the Pyfer match, and really consistently throughout his career. He has very good cardio. And then Gregory Rodrigues is a fighter that will make mistakes and slow down a bit as the fight progresses, as he also just showed against Jared Cannonier. Another factor is when you're talking Gregory Rodrigues, this is a fighter that is very skilled. He surrounds himself with great people. He has for a long time. He's a dangerous man. He's very aggressive. But one major flaw in his game is his defensive striking. As he gets over aggressive, we've seen him countered and finished multiple times, 3 times under the UFC banner, starting back to when he was knocked out by the very undersized, the diabetic Jordan Williams, who wasn't able to actually cut weight. If you guys remember, Jordan Williams was a big-time underdog. He went out there, spoiled the party, knocked Gregory out in the first round. After that, of course, he was knocked out by the Hulk Bruno Ferreira in the first round. That was a crazy one. And then the Cannonier one we just talked about. In the 4th round, he slowed down. He made some mistakes. He was finished. He was also knocked out way back in the day when he kicked off his MMA career. I believe it was his MMA debut. He was knocked out by Bruno Lopez in the first round. So we've seen a little bit of a track record of that. Now, what he has going for himself here is that Jack Hermansson is really not that threat. Okay, he has some finishes via strikes, but he's not really the type of fighter that is going to style on you on the feet and land that big counter or that big KO there. All right. Maybe if this was a 5-rounder, like I said, if he was the much fresher fighter, he could outvolume Gregory and maybe touch the chin and finish him up. But in a 3-round fight, I think it favors Gregory a lot. And stylistically, I just don't know if Hermansson's going to be able to land that type of finish on him. While on the other hand, you do have to note that Hermansson has had his flaws being finished as well. And that's important to note because Gregory is dangerous offensively. Roman Delize was able to basically flatten him out, right? He did, yeah. He flattened him out and finished him up via TKO. If you guys remember that one, that was pretty brutal. He was also finished by Jared Cannonier, a common opponent. I mean, we have seen Hermansson finished up. So, yeah, I'll highlight once again, this is a 3-rounder. Gregory should be in control of this fight from the moment the bell rings. He should just be landing a little bit crisper. Just scoring a little bit more heavily early on, and I could see him locking up 2 rounds. We'll see how that 3rd round goes, but this should be Rodrigues' spot to come through. And Hermansson has solid grappling, solid wrestling, and submission skills, but Gregory's a polished fighter, so he shouldn't be a fish out of water there. We'll take a look at the odds for this fight, which Gregory is about a -180 favorite right now. I think it's a pretty accurate line. I think that's a sharp line. Gregory, as long as he doesn't make a blatant mistake, he should be the fighter that is getting the better of exchanges, and he should be a little bit more complete here. The question mark again, though, is he's coming into this fight off a KO loss where he struggled there before. We'll see how the chin holds up. Maybe Hermansson could push the pace on him and somehow just volume him up, and maybe he lands a strike kick in the third round. Maybe a late stoppage for Hermansson is possible. But all in all, Gregory, this is a solid matchup for him, and I think that Gregory is the more polished and dangerous fighter right now. He's younger. We'll highlight the age real quick because Hermansson is 37 years old. Gregory's 33, even though Gregory looks like he's an old man. And my official pick for this fight will be that Gregory actually gets a bounce back finish of his own. Coming off the finish, I'm going to say he bounces back with his own finish. He's shown before when he gets knocked out, he'll bounce right back. He has a warrior spirit. He's not going to be intimidated. You guys know what he brings to the table. When he steps into that cage, he's always marching forward and highlighting, once again, Hermansson has been vulnerable to being finished. He's been knocked out 3 times out of his 8 losses, and Gregory is a fight finisher. So, of course, this was the initial matchup we were supposed to see on that UFC 311 fight card until everything fell apart. Arman Tsarukyan had the back injury. Renato Moicano gets called up to fight Islam Makhachev. It was a complete mismatch. Beneil Dariush falls off the card. It was very unfortunate because this was a fight that I was really looking forward to. These fighters have a lot of similarities going on here. All right, first off, both fighters 36 years old, basically the same frame. You take a look at their records, 22-6 and 1 draw, 20-6 and 1 draw. I mean, there's so many similarities. Both black belts in BJJ. Their striking has come around. Okay, they're not like completely in over their head as far as their striking goes. And I'm very interested to see how this fight plays out. If you guys caught my first breakdown of it, you guys already know how I feel about it. But I think it's very important to look back at that Mateusz Gamrot fight because he looked really good there. And Gamrot has still been going in there and showing how high level of a grappler he is. And the reason why I say it's important is because Renato, if you're not up to par there, he'll exploit you, as we saw him just recently due to Drew Dober. I don't think that's going to be the case here at all. Benny will be ready for anything that Moicano brings in that regard. I think that this could be a fight that actually plays out to be a striking affair. I could see the grappling of both these fighters nullifying themselves, and we see these fighters trading. And yes, Benny does come in on a 2-fight losing skid, but I mean, you take a look at the level of competition. We're talking the cream of the crop here. Charles Oliveira, Arman Tsarukyan. This is the top of the division. All right, and stylistically, they are tough matchups for Benny. Okay, but this is a different one here. I'm not fearing Renato striking that much. Just 2 KOs out of 20 victories. And I think that Dariush will get the better of the striking exchanges. I love the way that he blasts that left power body kick. He'll whip that into the mix. He's pretty fluid with his hands. He's not the most technical, but he's kind of like twitchy, if you guys know what I'm saying. He kind of has that street fight style. He's game. If you guys remember what he did to Jakar Close, as Close was bum rushing him and hurt him. I mean, Benny's game, man. He's in there and he'll clip you. And he has a handful of KOs in the octagon. You think back to the knockout that he had over James Vick. That was a wild one. He had a knockout over Scott Holtzman. There's a couple of KOs that he's had. And when you watch Renato Moicano in the cage, even in some of the fights where he's came back and he's won or he's pulled off certain tactics to win, we have seen him take damage in his fights, right? He came back and got pulled off the finish on Jalen Turner after Turner had him almost finished and started to walk away at the end of the first, and then he went back out and got finished. That was a weird one. You think about how Drew Dober was looking to get him, but he just couldn't stay on his feet. You think back to some of the losses he took, like against Rafael Fiziev, the Korean Zombie. Of course, the Jose Aldo one was a tough one. He got sliced through there. And, dating back to when he took an L against Brian Ortega, that was a fight he was actually up on the scorecards and made a blatant mistake in the third and ended up getting caught in a guillotine choke. Okay, so, I mean, there has been those types of slip-ups from Renato. And even when I look, I'll give him credit, but when I look at some of his more recent victories, the Turner fight, the Dober fight, and the BSD fight, I think there are major asterisks next to all of them. I'll give him credit for getting his hand raised, okay, but BSD made blatant mistakes in there that if he just slows the pace of that fight down, I mean, he was so overly aggressive to get back up to his feet after sloppily falling out of position and even being controlled down on the mat, and he took all that damage and his eye got shut and the fight had to get stopped. Okay, but I mean, I think BSD was really making some elementary mistakes in there. Jalen Turner's a complete head case. He retires from the game now. I mean, just horrible mistakes were made in the first round. If he would have slowed the pace down in that fight, I think he could have got the KO victory himself. And Drew Dober is a fighter that has struggled with his takedown defense, and Renato was able to take advantage of that. We'll give him credit, but I think that Beneil Dariush brings a little bit more to the table here, and I think that he will prevail by getting the better of the striking. Renato makes some mistakes, and I could see Benny clipping him up, touching him up, and at the end of the day, the KO is very live, but I'm going to say that Dariush wins a decision. I'm going to say that he wins a decision. I think we'll see some blood in there. I think that Renato will be touched up a bit, and may have some small glimpses of success, but I think that Dariush is the fighter that will prevail, and people are kind of overlooking him a bit because he's on a 2-fight losing skid. Just understand that Charles Oliveira and Arman Tsarukyan are different animals than a Renato Moicano, all right? And we'll take a look at the odds for this fight, and what you're going to see right now is Dariush is the dog. So this is another dog selection for me. Dariush opened up as a plus 145, and we're seeing slight movement come his way, which makes perfect sense to me. I think that this fight has to be at least at pick'em odds. I really do. I think some of the stock that's coming in on Renato may be also due to the fact that he's an entertaining guy. He's very fun on the mic, and he just keeps getting away with it, right? So he keeps getting that hand raised, so people are putting faith into him. But if Benny fights a grounded fight, like an intelligent fight, he should be the superior fighter in my opinion. And I have Dariush winning a decision here. So in the co-main event and main event bouts, both champions are coming in as big-time favorites. So I'll make sure I make it entertaining, and we really narrow in on a specific method of victory here. Pantoja is taking on Kai Kara-France. I've made it clear that this is not the fight that I wanted to see. Unfortunately, this is the way things have unraveled in the flyweight division, which is really one of my favorite divisions to watch. It's just, I like the striking that Kai Kara-France brings to the table, but I just don't think that he's warranted to be fighting the champ right now, who's coming into this fight on absolute fire. The way he just handled Kai Asakura was really impressive. Went out there and got the second round finish, hit him with the rear naked choke. Remember that rear naked choke? We're talking about that here in a second, but he went out there and won a close one against Steve Erceg before defeating Brandon Royval and Brandon Moreno, two of the top fighters in this division. And of course, he has beaten those fighters multiple times now. And I understand that the fighter that I've been barking about, who should be getting the title shot, has already lost at Pantoja and Manel Kape. But you have to understand that at the time that fight took place, which it was a very close one, okay, but Manel Kape was not the same fighter who he is today. He came into the UFC. He had a lot of experience coming over from Japan, but the first two fights that he had against Matheus Nicolau and Alexandre Pantoja, he was extremely hesitant. There wasn't a lot of activity that took place in either of those fights, and both of them were very close, okay? In fact, the Matheus was a split, and Pantoja was not a split, but trust me, I mean, all those rounds just could have went almost either way. There just was not a lot going on. And now that Kape has really solidified himself in the UFC, I just think that fight would be a very entertaining rematch, especially in a 5-rounder. Okay, so that's just why I've been harping on that. But to this matchup here, I'll be clear. Where I see Pantoja having a massive advantage is with his grappling. All right, I think that if he makes the mistake to sit and trade with Kai Kara-France, you're going to be in danger. We've seen that play out like that before when Francis came in as an underdog recently against Steve Erceg, and he went out there and he knocked him out, allowing him to get this opportunity. Okay, but if you look to change levels on him, you could definitely have success there. Amir Albalzi used some of those tactics to win a decision. It was a split decision. Not a lot of people thought that he should have won, but he did have that one takedown, and he had 6 minutes and 10 seconds of control time. He was only 1-9 on his takedowns, actually, which is an interesting fact. But there are other fights, like when you think about Brandon Royval pulling off the guillotine choke against him. He took an L against Brandon Moreno. He got hit with that liver kick there. That was via strikes. But Kai Kara-France, he has rounded his game out, but I still do believe that Pantoja will have a massive advantage in the grappling if he fights an intelligent fight. The way that he was looking in that Asakura fight, his grappling is on a whole nother level, and that's what he used to dig deep when he went out there and he defeated Brandon Moreno via split decision. That was a big one. We cashed big on that, caught him at dog odds, man. That was a very exciting fight. And if you remember the difference in that fight, what enabled Pantoja to win was when he was going to the grappling late, using his cardio and just constantly jumping on the back. He has one of the better back takes in the game. And when he's on your back, okay, that rear naked choke is live. That's where I'm going. with my pick for this fight. I think that Kai Kara-France is going to get very frustrated as he's struggling with in the grappling, and as he tries to create space and tries to break out to where he could use the striking. I think that he's going to open himself up to be rear naked choked. I'm going to say Pantoja pulls off a submission here. Okay, he defends his belt, and he's pushing to be really one of the greatest flyweight champions that we've ever seen. He's right up there. Of course, Demetrius Johnson leads the pack, but Pantoja is an excellent fighter. He's 35 years old, so he needs to start making decisions to what he wants to do here. After he gets a W here, I don't know if he wants to get that rematch with Kopp or not. I mean, he already has a victory against him. Make a decision, go up and wait. I want to see him versus Merab. I would love to see that. I want to see the Kopp fight too, but I mean, those are the types of fights he needs to make. He needs to get some super fights going on that down there in the lower weight classes to really get some respect put on his name. And speaking of respect put on his name, I mean, he's a minus 260 here. I think that line could be worse though, right? I mean, you could have maybe expected to see him being as like a minus 350, minus 400. This is the reigning champ. Kai Kara-France is a fighter that's only on a one fight winning streak coming in to this title opportunity. I mean, people are banking on him to show up like he did against Usyk. We'll see. The striking is crisp. It's refined. It is, but Pantoja is the more well-rounded fighter, and he shows to push through adversity, checks off a lot of boxes. I'm going to say Pantoja pulls off the submission. He defends his belt and continues to be the reigning flyweight champion of the world. Here we go. We got the vacant lightweight championship up for grabs. Ilia Topuria takes on Charles Oliveira. You got to love this fight. First things first, Topuria comes up in weight. A lot of people feel like he's going to be undersized in this weight class. He's just 5'7", but I'm going to let you guys know, I feel that he's going to be very, very dangerous in this weight class, as he's talked about. He was on Joe Rogan talking about how he was kind of struggling with the weight cut at times and how he feels so much stronger and healthier at this weight, all right? How he's going to feel better at this weight. And I believe him 100%. You take a look at him in his training, he looks a little bit more thick, okay? But now, as he doesn't have to cut weight leading up to these fights, this enables him to be fresher through his training, to sharpen his skill set even more so. And when we're talking about Ilia Topuria's skill set, it's as high level as it comes. And I'm talking about in all aspects of his fight game. His boxing skills, in my opinion, are at the top of mixed martial arts. I think he has the sharpest boxing in the game. His kickboxing skills overall are very sharp as well. His grappling, extremely high level. He's just 28 years old and is peaking as a fighter. Over the next 4 to 5 years, you're going to see him develop into his prime, which is a crazy idea to even think of based off what he's already shown us. I would argue to you that he has showcased us as MMA fans in the octagon the highest level of boxing that we've ever seen, as far as him just measuring up, seeing things in slow motion, and the pinpoint accuracy that he displays. I think that I really do believe in the Holloway fight and the Volkanovski fight, that is as high level of boxing as we've ever seen in the sport. Okay, so meet me in the comment section if you want to debate it and throw up another fighter that has shown more. I mean, of course, there's some greats that we've seen in this game, but you imagine a Topuria in the next couple of years, and it's going to be a real treat to see. As far as his overall game, his grappling is at a very high level. He's had some tricky jiu-jitsu and grappler puzzles thrown his way, but nothing to the level of an Oliveira, especially when you mix into the fact of the size that Oliveira has compared to like a Ryan Hall or a Bryce Mitchell. I understand it's different, but when we've seen Topuria tested in those fields against those fighters, he has passed with flying colors. And went out there and just broke down Bryce Mitchell and ended up actually subbing him with the arm triangle choke. We saw what he did to Ryan Hall, who has maybe the best 50-50 game that we've ever seen, and just the way he stayed out of danger and then ground and pound finished him up, smashed him down on the mat, knocked out Damon Jackson, really didn't even enable Damon Jackson to try to implement any of the grappling skills he had there. An underrated victory on his resume, of course, too, is Yusuf Zalal, who's a fighter that's really been putting in work down in the featherweight division since he's came back to the UFC. People like to talk about the Jai Herbert fight, how Herbert had early success, which that was a fight that took place up at 155, right, against a bigger fighter. People want to talk about Herbert landing a little bit early on as Topuria went on. He was measuring himself and went on to land one of the finest boxing knockouts that you'll ever see. You want to talk about an accurate shot? That was one of the fights that I was talking about when I talked about him showing some of the highest level boxing that we've ever seen. Go run the tape back on that. I mean, that dude's, it's like he's seeing his opponent in slow motion. Okay. It kind of reminds me of like Anderson Silva, but very different, right? Their striking styles are very different. Topuria is technical, hands are up, hands are tight. Silva used to get away with just being a freak athlete. Do I need to rave about the Holloway and Volkanovski KOs? I think you guys have kind of heard me rave about Topuria enough here. Let's just highlight a little bit of what Oliveira is bringing to the table here. He's the greatest submission artist in UFC history. I think I feel comfortable saying that. So to say that he is not a threat in that aspect in this matchup, I think that you'd be very naive, because he's a threat with his grappling to anybody that he faces, right? We knew that was the case even going into the Islam Makhachev fight. At the end of the day, though, we saw what Makhachev did to him. He broke him down, landed some strikes, and eventually he pulled off the arm triangle choke. I could see something similar playing out here as Topuria weathers the storm, avoids the early danger, and pulls off the submission. Okay, I'm going to get to what we're talking about here in a second. I think that Topuria finishes this fight. So what are we talking about now? Are we talking about him pulling off a sub or a knockout? Because we've seen Charles vulnerable to both of those throughout the years. And of course, early on in his UFC career, he was very, very prone to being submitted and KO'd, which is so interesting, right? As such a high-level grappler offensively, but why did he used to make so many mistakes and get subbed all the time? Jim Miller caught him in a knee bar. Ricardo Lamas hit him up with the guillotine, which was back-to-back guillotine losses, got caught by one from Anthony Pettis, mixed in with these KO losses. But we know he changed his career and obviously is a much different fighter nowadays than he was. And he just survived against Arman Sarukian and had a lot of success late in that fight and was threatening to sub Arman, just showing how high level he is. Went out there, used his grappling to dominate Michael Chandler. El Matador is not Michael Chandler. This is a different, whole different beast. And I'll cut to the chase here. Ilia Topuria will get a finish in this fight. Telling you guys that right now. And I'm going to say that he gets a knockout. He gets probably like a TKO type stoppage. He's gonna brutalize Oliveira. Oliveira's gonna shell up. He's gonna rain down some ground and pound over him, and he's gonna finish him up. All right. So the champ becomes a weight class champ now. As I got Conor McGregor looking over my shoulder over here, pulling up those both those belts. That was a hell of a day in the fight world. And you guys know I was a huge Conor McGregor fan, and I'm a huge Ilia Topuria fan. I'm excited, man. I'm excited to kind of see some things replicated here in a way. I love the confidence. Okay. So give me Topuria to win this fight. He is a -470. And that line, man, it's kind of crazy against Charles Oliveira, who's dangerous, but it's pretty accurate to me. I mean, I probably have Topuria capped as like a -420. So you could say it's a little steep, but yeah, I have him capped up in the -400 range. I think he should be somewhere around a 4-1 favorite. I do stand behind that line. Maybe it's getting a little ridiculous when it's getting up to 5-6. You have to respect Oliveira and the size that he brings, and we'll see how changing weight classes works for Topuria, but he is the real deal. He'll look better than ever. He will get a knockout in the fight. All right, guys, that's going to wrap this one up. As you know, I got to leave you with some parting words before we get out of here. I don't have anything planned. I had nothing on the agenda, nothing that I was thinking I wanted to talk about. But coincidentally, as we were talking about that main event between Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira, something popped into mind. And I think it's a good message, man. When you think about Topuria, you think about the confidence that oozes out of him. Similarly to how Conor McGregor used to do it, right? The confidence is crazy. And what's the key? We all know what the key is there with these guys. It's how prepared they are. Okay, how prepared and the work that they put in enables them to have that confidence, which you should all have. Every single one of you guys should have that confidence in all aspects of your life. You know, when you're talking to girls, okay, when you guys are out there, you're macking, you got to have that confidence. If you don't have that confidence, man, it's okay. You can get there, but it starts with preparing yourself. And then I don't mean preparing yourself in that way. I'm talking about taking care of yourself, man, taking care of yourself physically, eating well, okay, and socializing, right? Getting out there, socializing. You can't expect to just go around, chatting it up with the dime piece at the bar or whoever. Just a girl that attracts you her way. You're not going to know what to do if you don't socialize and talk to anybody throughout your day. You're not going to just go over there, and you're not going to really. You're not going to flow well with your conversation. So you need to be socializing all the time. You need to be eating well, taking care of your body. And then when you take a look at yourself, groom yourself well, you're going to feel good about yourself. And you're going to know subliminally in the back of your head that you are worthy of snagging these girls up, or in other aspects of your life too, man. When you're talking about working your way up through your work field, and you got these guys over here or there, you're at a work event and these guys are acting all cocky, you kind of, some of them annoy you or whatnot, you need to hold yourself in high regard so you could be at the work party feeling good about yourself, carrying yourself in the right way as you guys are all mingling and talking, if you guys understand what I'm saying. So just, there's nothing wrong with being confident and even a little bit of cockiness, but you want to tone that a little bit down here and there, because I mean I've seen it even when I do it a little bit on the mic, when I'm just feeling good and I'm doing it. I get a lot of hate coming in the comments, because people will, especially people that kind of look at you as a competitor, an extent, which you would be a competitor if you're a single man and you're out there in those types of environments, the bars, the girls, the work thing and all that. People will look at you as kind of a competitor, and when they see that, they'll hate on you. So you want to tone that down, be humble, but make sure you have plenty of confidence, okay? And as they try to knock you down, even if you're humble and you're confident, they'll still come at you just as much as if you were arrogant and cocky. They're still going to come at you. So don't let them knock you down. Don't let them mess with your psyche there and second guess yourself. Feel great about yourself, thrive through life, and it all starts with being prepared and putting the work in. All right, so make sure you're putting the work in throughout the week. All right, guys, leave you with that. Signing out. Teller.
The teller.